They carved spirits from dreams. In Alaska, Yupik shamans shaped masks of twisted faces, half human, half otherworldly. In Belize, the tomb of Caracol's first king held jade masks and gods unknown. Across Jeju Island, giant stone tables rise in fields, some for the dead, others for no one at all. Rome's great harbor, Ostia, fell silent as the sea withdrew. Pyramids endure millennia, yet fade the moment we uncover them. In China, Jiaohe, fortress without walls, was swallowed by desert winds, and in America, the Roanoke colony walked into history and vanished. 7 riddles, 7 enigmas, Season 4 deepens, only here on Riddle Me This Mysteries. They were carved from visions. In the frozen expanse of Alaska, the Yupik people believed the boundary between human and spirit could be crossed in dreams. Shamans would awaken with images of beings not entirely human, nor entirely animal, and bring them into the world through wood and pigment. The result was a mask, sometimes serene, sometimes twisted into forms unsettling to the human eye. Some masks had 2 mouths, as if one face could not contain both human words and spirit voices. Others bore extra eyes, antlers or wings, revealing creatures caught between worlds. Why were so many masks intentionally unsettling, even frightening? Were they warnings or simply faithful renderings of what shamans saw in visions? These masks were not decorations. They were tools for ceremony, danced in the firelight, accompanied by drumming and chants, meant to call on spirits for guidance, healing, or the success of the hunt. In the Bladder Festival, held in winter, masks honored the souls of seals that had given their lives. In the Messenger Feast, they embodied stories exchanged between villages. Every distortion, every strange symmetry, was drawn from a vision beyond the ordinary. For centuries, these practices endured, but in the 19th century, missionaries sought to erase them. Masks were condemned as pagan, ceremonies outlawed, sacred dances silenced. Countless carvings were burned or abandoned. What survived often did so not in villages but in museums, collected by outsiders who saw them as curiosities rather than conduits of power. Yet the earth itself guarded some of these secrets. In recent years, archaeologists at Nunatak in southwestern Alaska uncovered a frozen time capsule. Over 100,000 artifacts sealed in permafrost between 1300 and 1650 CE. Wooden mask fragments, fragile and warped, emerged alongside tools, toys and figures. Preserved by ice, they reveal details rarely seen, traces of pigments, delicate carvings, fibers still intact. But the preservation is fragile. Once thawed, colors fade and wood crumbles. What the ground kept safe for centuries can vanish within days. The story of the Yupik masks does not end in ruin. Today, Yupik carvers are reviving the tradition, blending ancestral vision with new struggles. Contemporary artists shape masks that speak of identity, resilience, and even climate change, the new spirit threatening their lands. The masks, once channels to the unseen, now also testify to survival. Were these distorted faces faithful portraits of spirits glimpsed in dream, or symbols meant to remind humans of their fragile place between animals, gods, and the land? The truth lingers in wood and memory. And in the jungles of Belize, another mystery waits, in a tomb where the first king of Caracol still rests, surrounded by jade and the whispers of foreign gods. In the jungles of Belize, beneath the ruins of Caracol, archaeologists led by Arlen and Diane Chase uncovered a tomb sealed for more than 16 centuries. It belonged to Chaak, the first known king of this great Maya city. His name appears in ancient inscriptions, but for decades his resting place was lost. Now, for the first time in over 40 years of digging at Caracol, a royal tomb has been found, and with it, a glimpse into the birth of a dynasty. The chamber lay deep within the northeast Acropolis, beneath a shrine near the towering Kana complex. Inside were 11 painted vessels, carved bone tubes, Pacific spondylus shells, and pieces of jadeite jewelry. Most striking was a mosaic jade death mask, once placed upon the king's face, and pottery showing rulers in ritual dialogue with the gods, images of Ekchua, the patron of trade, and captives bound in submission. Even the lids of vessels were carved with Coatimundi heads, animals that later became emblems of Caracol's rulers. The body itself told another story. Chaak was an old man when he died, toothless but tall, about 1.70 m, a stature of dignity in his time. Cinnabar stained the burial, the red mineral long associated with power and the underworld. Yet one of the burials in the same complex was not a typical Maya inhumation at all, but a cremation, a rite foreign to the Maya, yet common in far-off Teotihuacan. Obsidian blades and foreign ceramics hint that contact with central Mexico came earlier than scholars believed. The famous Entrada of 378 CE was long thought the turning point of Maya-Teotihuacan relations, but here, decades before, we see signs of shared rituals, diplomacy, perhaps even influence on the very founder of Caracol. What does this mean? Was Chaak forging ties with distant powers to legitimize his new throne? Or were the Maya simply borrowing foreign symbols to project authority at home? The answer remains elusive, hidden in the bones and jade still under study. Archaeologists are now reconstructing the mask, testing the bones and analyzing DNA and isotopes. Each result could shift the story again. From this beginning, Caracol grew into one of the greatest Maya cities, its dynasty ruling for nearly 460 years. Yet only now, with this tomb, does the story of its founding king come into focus. Out of fewer than 24 royal Maya tombs ever uncovered in Belize, this one may prove the most revealing. But while this tomb reveals a dynasty's birth, other mysteries stand silent in stone. On a far-off island in Korea, where fields of colossal dolmens rise like tables for giants. On the volcanic fields of Jeju Island, hundreds of colossal stones lie scattered like abandoned tables for giants. Their form is simple, a massive capstone, flat and broad, balanced on upright stones, and yet their meaning is anything but clear. South Korea holds nearly 40% of the world's dolmens, over 30,000 in total, and Jeju's clusters are among the most enigmatic. Raised between roughly 1000 to 300 BCE, they belong to a tradition that spanned the Late Bronze and Early Iron Age. Some conceal burials, stone daggers, beads or shards of pottery buried beneath. Others stand empty, their chambers bare, as if built not for the dead but for memory alone. Why raise monuments of such weight and effort, if not all were meant to hold the remains of ancestors? Recent excavations elsewhere in Korea add to the puzzle. Some dolmens hide multiple chambers, divided into separate compartments. Others bear the marks of cremation, rare in the Bronze Age, charcoal, burned earth, even scorched stone lining the chamber. These finds raise new questions about Jeju's dolmens. What rites might still lie beneath their capstones, hidden by time and soil? The diversity is staggering. Some are table type, their capstones supported by high pillars. Others squat low, tortoise-like, as if crouching into the earth, and yet form does not clearly map to function. Empty dolmens and richly furnished ones exist side by side, their purpose still debated. Were they tombs, altars, or astronomical markers? Or did they serve shifting roles across generations? Jeju may hold an even deeper secret. Scholars suggest that on this island, far from the mainland, the megalithic tradition may have lasted longer, stretching into the early Iron Age, preserved by communities that clung to older rites while new cultures rose elsewhere. Some dolmens may therefore record not just burials but a long continuity of belief, a memory set in stone. And Jeju's dolmens also whisper of connections far beyond Korea. Bronze artifacts found in other dolmen fields, daggers, spearheads, ornaments, closely resemble those of northeastern China. Was Jeju part of a wider Bronze Age network where ideas, objects, and perhaps even the practice of raising megaliths traveled across seas? The fields remain silent. Some dolmens guard bones and treasures, others nothing at all. Perhaps they were never meant to be graves, but messages for the living, stone signs reminding communities of power, ancestors, or the stars overhead. Why so many? Why here on a volcanic island where every stone had to be dragged by human hands? Until their secrets are uncovered, Jeju's dolmens will remain what they seem at first sight, massive tables left for giants. Far to the west, another silence lingers. On the edge of Italy, where Rome's bustling harbour city, Ostia, was abandoned and left to decay. For centuries, Ostia Antica was the mouth of Rome. It was the empire's first colony, founded in the 4th century BCE, and it grew into a port city where the world converged. Ships from Egypt brought grain, amphorae of olive oil arrived from Spain, fine glass from the east. The harbour teemed with dock workers and sailors, merchants and priests, soldiers and slaves. At its height, nearly 50,000 people lived here, crowded into tall apartment blocks, buying meals at painted taverns, worshipping in temples, bathing beneath mosaics of Neptune and his sea creatures. Today, those mosaics remain. The streets are still paved. Taverns still show their menus. Communal latrines line the walls and shrines stand at street corners. Ostia looks almost alive, yet it is empty. The reasons seem straightforward. The Tiber River silted, the coastline shifted, and emperors built Portus, a vast new harbor upriver that outshone Ostia. Earthquakes rattled the delta, storms lashed the docks, and the city's lifelines slowly drained away. By the 4th and 5th centuries CE, Ostia was fading, but here lies the paradox. The city did not die when it should have. Archaeology shows it lingered. Houses were repaired, baths kept running. New rituals were performed even in decline. In 2024, archaeologists uncovered a Jewish ritual bath, a mikveh, hidden beneath later ruins, its steps worn by generations of immersion. Lamps carved with menorahs lay in the earth, proof that Ostia still harbored a Jewish community centuries after its peak. Not far away, a well beside the Temple of Hercules yielded a strange collection: burnt animal bones, shattered ceramics, oil lamps, even a wooden chalice preserved by mud. These were offerings thrown into the dark as sacred banquets ended, long after Ostia's glory was gone. And so the mystery deepens. Why did people remain, patching homes and clinging to faith, even as Rome's emperors poured money into Portus? Why build ritual baths and continue sacrifices in a city already marked for abandonment? And if Ostia still lived, why did it finally fall silent? Was it disease, fear of raids, a sudden disaster lost to history? Or did the people simply walk away one by one, leaving the city intact but hollow? Ostia endures as a ghost city. Streets, taverns, baths, mosaics, all standing, waiting as if time itself froze. It is not ruins alone that haunt here, but the silence of a city that lived after death and then slipped away without a clear cause. Elsewhere, another mystery waits. Monuments that stand for millennia, yet begin to crumble the very moment we open them. The strange fate of the pyramids. A pyramid can stand for thousands of years, weathering sand, storms, and conquest. Walls painted in brilliant colors lie sealed in darkness, untouched by time. And then, the moment we open them, time turns against them. This is the paradox of Egypt's monuments. Tombs that endured intact for millennia begin to die the instant air, light, and human presence reach them. The colors of gods and pharaohs that once glowed in torchlight quickly fade to pale outlines. Plaster that clung to stone for centuries crumbles at a breath. Mummies, preserved by ritual and desert dryness, disintegrate once unwrapped. Why does this happen? Part of the answer is science. Sealed chambers maintain stable conditions, dry, dark, unchanging. When we open them, the balance collapses. Oxygen sparks chemical reactions that oxidize pigments. Moisture carried on visitors' breath condenses on cool walls, feeding crystals of salt that expand and flake plaster away. Microbes, dormant in the dark, awaken when exposed to air and humidity, slowly devouring wood, paint, and linen. What the earth preserved, we destroy by seeing. The tomb of Queen Nefertari is one of the most vivid examples. Its painted walls, among the most magnificent in Egypt, had survived more than 3,000 years sealed in silence. But within decades of discovery, the plaster began to crack and the colors to fade. By 2024, decay forced conservators to close the site once more, keeping visitors away so that at least fragments of its beauty might endure. The pyramids themselves faced the same dilemma. For centuries they stood shrouded by sand, their chambers stable in the dark. Now, as we excavate and expose them, their surfaces weather faster than ever. Even the smallest of the great trio at Giza, the Pyramid of Menkaure, sparked fierce debate in 2024 when plans to restore its granite casing were met with outrage. Was it protection or a risk of erasing authenticity? Every attempt to preserve threatens to alter, every exposure to reveal threatens to destroy. And so the mystery endures. Why can stone and paint resist the desert for millennia, yet collapse within years of our gaze? Did the ancient builders anticipate this, designing tombs not only to protect the dead, but also to resist the living? Or is it simply that the very act of knowing unravels what was kept whole by ignorance? The pyramids remind us that discovery is not always salvation. Sometimes it is the beginning of loss. Beyond Egypt, other ruins faced their own silence, none more haunting than Jiaohe, the desert city that defended itself without walls and yet vanished into the sands. In the deserts of Xinjiang lies a city carved from earth, perched high on a plateau where two rivers cut deep canyons on either side. This was Jiaohe, the river city, and unlike every other fortress of its age, it had no walls. Its cliffs were its ramparts, the land itself its shield. To enter, you crossed a single narrow path. Once you were inside, the plateau itself seemed invincible. For centuries, that gamble worked. From the 2nd century BCE through the Tang dynasty, Jiaohe thrived. Its streets ran straight down the spine of the plateau, lined with carved homes, administrative halls, and Buddhist stupas. Families lived in earthen dwellings cut downward into the soil, cool in summer, warm in winter. Caravans of silk, glass, and spices passed through, leaving behind traces of distant worlds. Chinese officials, Sogdian traders, Buddhist monks. Life here was layered and diverse, a miniature Silk Road in the desert. And then it was gone. In the 13th century, Mongol armies swept across Central Asia, and Jiaohe was destroyed. The plateau that once needed no walls could not shield it from fire and conquest. Its people scattered, its name forgotten, its streets left to the wind. Unlike stone cities, Jiaohe blurred back into the very earth it was carved from, houses and temples slowly sinking into sand until only silent outlines remained. Yet the paradox is that Jiaohe endures. It is today the largest and best preserved earthen city in the world, still stretching more than 1,600 meters across the desert plateau. Walk its central avenue, and the city is there. Empty courtyards, hollowed rooms, shrines long abandoned. It feels like a stage stripped of actors, as if the inhabitants had stepped out only yesterday and never returned. But survival here is fragile. The lowest earth cracks under temperature swings. Rains erode the cliffs. Floods gnaw at its base. Wind scrapes away its edges. Modern engineers have patched fissures, shored up walls, even installed a smart grid to manage tourism. Sensors now watch the ruins for new cracks, measuring the pace of decay. Every year the question grows sharper. How long can a city carved from earth withstand time once more? Why did Jiaohe choose to live without walls? Was it confidence in its natural fortress, or a belief that defenses were unnecessary in a world of trade and faith? And what does it mean that a city designed to outlast enemies now battles its truest adversary? Forgetting. The city without walls may still fall, not to siege, but to silence. Its bones remain in the desert, but its voice has long since gone. And across the ocean, another settlement would also vanish, yet without fire, without ruins, without graves. Only a name carved in wood remained, the fate of the Roanoke colony. Why would over 100 men, women, and children dismantle their homes, erase their traces, and vanish without a fight? In 1587, 115 English settlers landed on Roanoke Island, off the coast of present-day North Carolina. Among them were families and children, the hope of planting England's first permanent colony in the New World. Their governor, John White, returned to England for supplies. War with Spain delayed him for 3 years. When he finally came back in 1590, the colony was gone. The palisade stood silent, its gate left open. The houses had been carefully dismantled, not burned or destroyed. There were no graves, no bones, no signs of struggle, only a single word, Croatoan, carved into a post. For centuries, this absence became legend, the lost colony of Roanoke. Did they starve? Were they killed? Did they join the Croatan people on nearby Hatteras Island? The mystery deepened because no certain trace of them was ever found. But archaeology has begun to whisper new clues. At a site inland known as Site X, fragments of English pottery turned up, dating to the late 16th century, the exact era of the lost colonists. At another site called Site Y, similar shards appeared, and in the soil of Site X a small slate tablet emerged, likely used for writing or drawing. These are the only artifacts that might connect directly to Roanoke's colonists after 1587, yet they are fragments, not proof. Oral traditions among indigenous communities add another layer. Some tribes remembered pale-skinned outsiders who came among them, sometimes as allies, sometimes as enemies. Later groups like the Lumbee even claimed descent from these vanished settlers. But memory is malleable, and neither archaeology nor DNA has yet confirmed the stories. The most haunting detail is not what was found, but what was not. No signs of massacre, no hurried burials. The colonists dismantled their own village. They left together. It looks less like annihilation than decision. But what decision? To join native allies, to seek survival inland, to march toward a fate no record has preserved. Even with modern science, the answers slip away. Pottery and slate tease us, but certainty dissolves in the soil. The colonists of Roanoke remain what they were the day John White returned. A question: why did they go? Where did they go? And how did more than 100 lives vanish without a trace, leaving only a word carved in wood? 7 riddles, 7 enigmas, from shamans' masks to vanished cities, from pyramids that crumble at our gaze to colonies erased without a trace. The past offers no final answers, only silence and the mysteries we carry forward. If one of these mysteries lingers with you, let it travel further. Like the video, subscribe if you haven't, share the silence. Until next time, remember, the past never speaks plainly, only here, on Riddle Me This Mysteries.